That was rough.
You're not old enough to know. Maybe you are. Were you around for the 98? No. So you're too young. You would have been. You might not even been born yet.
No, I was not. I was born in 2004.
Oh, okay, yeah. You always seem so much older to me.
I try.
But at this point, I'm going to welcome everybody to the podcast. Hello, everybody. It's Darren here with Trust the Story. And as you can tell, this is not PD. This is not Sarah. This young man in front of me is Josh Larson. And what we're going to do today is Josh is home from college, your longtime disciple here at Prince of Peace. And what people might not know is actually Josh Larson is one of the people who helped with this idea of a podcast, believe it or not. We were doing some listening sessions back in the day. We talked about this. So welcome, Josh.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Good to be here. Very happy to have you. So I just want to start off by asking, why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey here at Prince of Peace? What, when did you start becoming a member? Were you a kid? Why don't you just tell us a little bit about your journey?
Yeah. So as far back as I can remember, I went to CDLC here. So yeah.
Oh, you're a CDLC kid too.
So it's
wow.
been way back, long time. I went to CDLC, and I was also a part of POP, what is now POP Kids, Crosswalk, Worship on Wednesdays, all throughout elementary school.
Did you say Crosswalk?
Yeah, that was one of the names that it was called at one point, and it was about the reason for the name was around walking with Christ, walking together with Christ. Yeah. And that was just one of the names. It went through a couple of names: Crosswalk, Worship on Wednesdays, WOW, and now Pop Kids. But yeah,
I didn't know about Crosswalk. I came in when it was WOW, so that's interesting to note. Anyway, so you're CDLC kid. Mm-hmm. Who is the music? Do you remember a music teacher you had back in the day?
Oh my goodness, Kari. Yeah, Kari. She was great. She rocks. She put on some killer musicals, and she was a great role model and leader growing up, and she actually came to my graduation party, so it's still someone that our family's still really close to. She was a great leader, great person, full of energy, and
I got to work with Kari, I think, for just a couple of years before she retired, but she was really, I was just curious who was kind of around at that time. So you talked about Crosswalk, mm-hmm. and WOW. Now you grew up through WOW, but not only were you volunteering WOW, did you get involved in any different ways?
So how WOW works is you eventually grow out of it, right? You go to Stumin, and so I did Stumin 6th through 12th grade. We had a few bumps in there with COVID and stuff, but mm-hmm. And while I was also in Stumin, I also came back to WOW, now named Pop Kids.
Pop Kids, yep.
And that's kind of where I started to get to know you a little more. And I was a small group leader, and I worked with Nathan. I did a couple of sermons for Pop Kids, and I was a small group leader for 4 years, I want to say. I think it was all through high school. 4 years.
Wow. Did you do any other volunteering type things here at the church or outside of the church?
So again, I was really active in Stumin. I did a couple of messages through Stumin too. I was also active in a couple clubs and stuff through school that worked with getting access clubs for donations and clothes specifically for people of need through my school. And what else did I do? High school is a blur. It went really fast.
Well, and you're part of the generation that dealt with some of school through COVID as well. So I always find there's this gap, this little memory, even for us, I'll be like, what did we do 4 years ago for church? And we weren't having church. We were having church, but we were designing where actually now we are it started kind of a movement here at Prince of Peace, and we've been pushing towards now pretty hard in the last a couple of years for sure when it comes to an online social media presence. So you're done with high school. You're in college. Where are you going to college now?
I go to Winona State, Roll Warriors. Yeah, I'm down in Winona. I'm studying nursing. I'm a sophomore. I'm loving it. Great time, great place. Love the bluffs. Just a really fun place to be.
Now, it's always a hard jump, right? Going from high school to college, but especially when you are bringing faith life into that. What have you done? What is it you see that students are doing now, making that jump, or feel like there's a missing gap from the jump from going from high school to going out on your own, living in college, and finding a faith life?
So one thing that I think Prince of Peace did a really good job in me is just setting the importance of that community, right? Prince of Peace has always had a strong community, especially with our youth, with our young people, of building that community, building those friendships and those relationships around Christ. And so I knew, even like when I was leaving this place, that was going to be a hard leave, even if it's just temporary while I'm at college, but it was going to be a hard leave. And so I knew, like, going down to college, that those relationships were something, one, to hang on to, those old, long-time friendships and relationships, but also know that there's room in this new town to make those relationships. And there's people who, just like me, are leaving their own communities, their own faith, their own faith groups, their own churches, looking for other groups. So I knew that, like, there would be other people in that similar situation. And so I looked for those people, and I made really good friendships down in Winona that are in the same situation. And I think that's a pretty common thing that people of my age are looking for, is just that connection, right? We're looking for groups. And that's something that since COVID, I don't know if we've necessarily recovered from, is we missed connection. We missed connecting with each other and building those relationships, having those conversations. And so going into college, it was like, this could be a good time to start new conversations, start new relationships, build a group of good friends that have a strong faith base to build those relationships and those friendships on. And I found a church down there. When I started last August, when I went down for my freshman year, I kind of explored a couple of churches, because I think that's also good, is to, like, try new things, because, I did grow up at Prince of Peace my whole life. And so I was like, well, I'm in a new town. Prince of Peace isn't here. Might as well try some. So I tried out a couple of the churches in Winona, and I found one that had a really good ministry and that I felt like I belonged in, and that's kind of where I've been spending my time down there in Winona. But,
That's really interesting. And there would be, so, like, this is like spurring on some thoughts in my own head, because there is, there's this piece that I find a lot of folks are thinking about when it comes to reaching younger generations, in that, I know there's a lot of people who think the draw is like technology and all these things. It's not to say that isn't a draw, but I'm hearing more and more from a younger generation that there's a misconception. It's that you're looking for connection. We think in this world where, like, y'all are on your phones and everything's right here, that you're finding your community from your devices. But that's something you're telling me your generation is longing for, especially coming out of the last few years. Did I hear that right?
Oh, 100%. I think, like, when we talk about technology, again, it's a tool, right? Your phone will never replace those relationships, those bonds, those connections that you have with face-to-face with people. It's a tool that can allow you to connect with, like, interact with those people, especially over a long distance. It's a great thing that can allow for that communication, but it'll never replace that in-person, that connection, that bond between people. And so, though I think social media, podcasts are a great way to connect with people, it's a good way to hook people in, like, get people the knowledge, get people the information, but then it also then allows for a stepping stone to then introduce people to those connections, to those relationships, to build those relationships further.
That's amazing. So you're talking about the social media aspects as a tool. So you were talking about how you were out there looking for churches. What are some of the things you did before you visited that church? What made you go, you know what, I'm going to try them out this week? Was it just driving down the road, or did you know some people? What kind of made you find that current church home that you are working in during college in Winona there?
A lot of it was word of mouth, whether it was seen on someone's Snapchat story of like, oh, they're at this church, they're doing a pretty fun activity, or even just a roommate or someone down the hall talking about this new church that they tried out. And so word of mouth is a big thing, and but also like there's in Winona on campus there are like set up booths of these churches, because they just as much as we are looking for them, they're looking for us, right? There are groups of people who want to welcome people in, and I think Prince of Peace is one of those groups. We want to bring people in, right? We're a very open community. We want people to come see us. And so one thing that they did is like they opened their door, like freshman year welcome week. They opened their doors. They said, "Come, we have food," right? Like we have food. And to a freshman who's already 1 week in, already sick of the dining hall, oh, food, yes. Chili, yes. Like
you're telling me during college week we need the Holy Smokers here, giving free smoked barbecue to the incoming freshmen.
Oh, absolutely. And I don't even think why stop at freshmen? If we just say we've got barbecue, oh, I know people will show up.
Yeah. Well, and like we had like this weekend men's breakfast and whatnot, which has been hugely popular. But that's interesting to note. So they opened the doors, gave you food, and it just from there just kind of worked through. What is it, you're getting into the door, you're seeing some of these churches. What is it when it comes to, and this is going to be a several phase question, but when it comes to a church community, mm-hmm. What is it that you are, what are you looking for in a church community? What are the things that make you go, yes, those are the people I want to hang out with, or that's the church I want to be with?
Well, for me, it's like I've grown up in this fantastic church community, and so I had a really good example of what to expect and like what to look for in a church. Of like, though every church is going to do things differently, I was like, well, like, could I see myself feeling like I fit in at this church like I did at Prince of Peace, right? And that was just how I walked into it, of like, it's not going to be Prince of Peace, like, and that's okay. Every church is different, and that's what makes it beautiful, is that there's something for everyone, right? We still have the same core fundamentals, but we do worship a little differently, or we do our coffee tastes a little different, right? Like, it's the little things. And so it's just, I had this, like, I knew, like, I couldn't necessarily put the words on it, but I knew what I was like looking for, of like community. Like, it's just like, you can tell when you walk into a room of like, are you welcome there? And it's not even necessarily about welcome, because like, oh, where did I hear this? Like, being welcomed is like you're getting welcomed into the door, but it's not necessarily just about being welcome. It's about belonging. So it's, do you feel like you're not just welcomed in the door, but do you belong in the space?
There's someone who put this, and I just moved recently, and I was making my house and how it is when you walk in, and someone said, what's interesting is you can tell if you can hang out with a person by how you walk into their living room and how you sit. If you walk into the living room and you feel like you can't sit on any of the furniture, then it always feels like the vibe is off. But the people that you can walk in and feel like you can sit on the couch and just feel immediately comfortable, feel like you're by a cozy fire. And I think there's kind of a metaphor to attach to that. If you're walking in the church and you just don't feel like you can sit on the furniture, mm-hmm. I think is kind of maybe what you're meaning. Like, there's a difference between like, yeah, they said hello to me, but I walked in and like I just didn't feel like I could sit anywhere.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, you nail on the head. You hit the nail on the head right there.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's interesting. think we're still good. Oh, we're still good. Sorry about that. Like I have a loose cable, and I thought the recording stopped. I'm also monitoring all the recording and cameras, so I'm double dutying. But well, that's awesome to note, because like that's one of the things that we're trying to, like, we commonly talk about. You know, not only are you welcome, but you feel welcome. And it's not easy to do.
Yes.
I mean, I've known, like, it and it takes a lot. It takes and this is not my opportunity to preach by any means, but it does. It takes a whole community too. All it takes is one person walking through the door to be like, "Who are you?" You know, kind of vibe that makes you, like, for me. And now I'm 42. You are 21. 20. But I don't think that's different. I think we both get the same feeling the minute that you get that one person, like, that kind of gives you the side eye or that kind of thing. I don't normally feel that here, and never have I felt that here. But I have in other places. So let's talk about worship. Mm-hmm. Because I'm always fascinated by, like, I've grown up with kind of both worlds of worship. I grew up in the world of worship that was very conservative, organ, readings, you know, even at the time the priests, because I was Catholic, were singing the hymns and everything. But then I kind of now I'm in this different world. I wouldn't call it modern because it's been around quite a long time, but we often call it contemporary worship or modern worship. So now we're in this world of that. When you're looking at, you know, a worship experience, what excites you about a good worship experience?
So again, it's got to go down to the people, right? Like if you are belonging in a group, in a place, and you got a group of people that you feel comfortable with, worship is just elevated, because like you got a group of people singing, maybe even dancing, just cheering, worshiping the Lord. I think contemporary music, great. I love it. It's super fun. Hymns also super beneficial. It's a fine line of the balance, you know, of just incorporating everything, because both contemporary music and hymns, traditional hymns.
You're good.
The words. Both contemporary music and traditional hymns, they both have the same purpose behind it. It's to worship Jesus, right? And so I think they're both extremely valuable, and I do enjoy both of them. And so it's just of finding a right balance and finding the right figure.
Yeah, like, the right equation.
Yeah. And I think the best way to do that is just try things out, right? Like, and everyone's got unique taste and flavors when it comes to music, but I think it's just a balance and new things. And I think Prince of Peace has always had a phenomenal job with all sorts of their worship, whether it's through their choir, through their orchestra, through their Stuman band, through Russ, through all these different people who have done wonderful things with worship. And it's really nice to come home and be like, okay, I know I'm going to come home to a good worship, like, set. Like, I know it's going to be good.
Right.
That's never been a question of like, oh, am I going to come home and then I'm going to be like, okay, the message was good, but the music was just okay. Like, that has never been a question at Prince of Peace. And I think music is such a great thing to bring people together. Again, about that connection is it not only can make people feel comfortable and welcome in a space, but it also can lead to conversations. Hey, did you hear that song? Or that new song? What did you think of that new song? Or so it can really open doors of comfort, of conversation. And so I think it's a really amazing tool, just like social media. It's a tool that we can use to not only connect with God, but also to connect with each other.
So for you, and again, you're just one of many of your of the what I'll call a younger generation. Definitely that bridge generation, trying to bridge high school to college, trying to figure out where your feet are going to land, not just vocationally, but eventually church home wise and all.
Home wise,
yeah. Like at the beginning of it all. But you're very connected to the music in worship. That's something that has always kind of been the big draw for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I grew up in Kari's choir. I grew up in, I think it was Pop Rocks. That was the name of it.
Pop Rocks.
That's what it called.
I do remember
that. Called at the time.
Yep.
But the Pop Kids Choir is what it's called now. So I grew up doing that, and it was always something that I knew that I could like rely on. Of like, I could feel connected to God, whether I was on the stage or I was in the congregation. I just knew I could rely on that as a way to connect with God. And that is also, I've found that that's been exemplified. So I work at Camp Wapo, which is where we send some of our students in the summer for summer camp.
And you attended Wapo when you were a kid as well.
I attended Wapo for how many years? I think 7 or 8 years. And then, so I've been going there for like 9 years, since like second grade. So it's been a long time, 9-10 years. Wait, that math doesn't work. Anyways, long time. And now I work there, and worship is a strong thing that we value at camp, worshiping together specifically. And so that's just something that, from growing up in Prince of Peace, from working at camp, just coming together, that's just been something that I've valued. And then going back to your question about what did I look for, I did judge their worship, like, of these churches that I was visiting down in Winona. I was like, well, do they have a good worship? Like, obviously it's not going to be Prince of Peace. Like, we're not going to have a whole orchestra, and we're not going to have the bells and the huge organ, but just did they have something that I could connect with? And I think that is something that's very important, and that we have been extremely successful at putting together. And that's not an easy thing to do, because there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to worship. And there's parts, like in the booth, that get sometimes ignored or not recognized as much. Shout out to you. But it's a lot of moving parts that take a lot of people with a lot of skill. And I think that that's something that we are doing really well, and that we are not only have been doing well, but we're also constantly trying to improve. And I think that is a great thing to see in a church as a whole, is that we're trying new things, we're changing things up a little bit, and that's just so cool to see that even though it's working, let's try something new, because we can always make it better.
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that, because we have tried a lot of new things. We've tried a lot of new things in the last year for sure. One of the new things that we've been trying is our social media reach, I guess, if that makes sense, or our footprint. And you before talked about you were looking for a church, and you had a buddy who shared a snap or shared an Instagram story. Now that is something we've started to do, and shout out to everybody who's clicked on them and commented on them. But one of the things I think is important, because you said it, your buddy shared a snap, you saw that snap, and you went to try out their church community. Can you explain the importance of some of the newer things that you've been seeing us do, from, like, for your generation, from what we're doing right now, from this podcast to the shorts, and to expanding our social media footprint?
Yeah. I think one of the... What did I unplug? No, we're good. Okay. I think one of the greatest things that I saw, like, Prince of Peace social media doing in the most recent was on the Stewman page a couple weeks ago, before winter break. I saw that they posted something, and it was just candid shots of groups. They were making tie blankets, and I think it's just so cool to see, like, these stills of just small groups being in community, doing some service projects together. And that's just such a cool thing to see, of just groups of young people. They're a little younger than me, but young kids getting together, building these connections while serving people in their community. So it was really cool to see these candids of a community that I used to be a part of, and to see that they're still being active servants in the community around them, and the impact that they're having is still happening in the community.
So you like getting the updates of what we're currently doing from your church home. What about from a perspective? Let's say if you weren't going to Prince of Peace, what are some of these important things that you would draw you down in Winona?
I think again, it's just showing that community. Like seeing those candids is such a term that us young people use as a green flag. It's just a green flag to be like, oh, there's kids just hanging out, making tie blankets, like, or just seeing the community members together, seeing that this is a place where people come together. It's not just a building, and it's not empty on every day but Sunday. Like showing the ways that this building is used to touch the lives of the people that come here.
What's a candid? You call it candid.
A candid is like, so it's a photo taken like in the moment. So it's not like a staged photo. Like it's not, oh, everyone line up in 2 rows, front row on your knees. Like it's just people doing whatever they're doing. Like they might not be looking at the camera. It's just showing people being people.
So you want the candids. You want to see the experience. You're more affected by not necessarily like, here's what we did, and it's a staged photo at like Feed My Starving Children where we're all standing by a table and giving a thumbs up. You want to see us actually in scoop.
Yep.
Yep. You want to see that's I'm gonna write that one down. Candids. Nina, just so you know, kids like candids. That's fascinating. I haven't heard it called candids, but I know exactly what you're talking about. I look for the same thing. I don't have a title for it, but I like that it's called candids, because commonly I'm like, yeah, you know, like there was this old phrase. It was like, you can look through a photo book of all these moments where all these people are smiling, but the real connection and the real events happened in between the moments of these photos. Mm-hmm. I love that, because like when I see candids as well, I am drawn to that. I am drawn to seeing when people are like tying things, or even from a video perspective, if I'm watching an event and it's not necessarily always super planned out, it's, you know, somebody running around with the gimbal and capturing the actual emotion and moment of some of the events that we're doing.
And then it gives you, as like an outsider, I guess, like the idea of like, well, could you see yourself doing that? Could you see yourself being a part of that group? And so it's just another tool used to like that welcoming and that belonging of not only are we trying to get you in the door, but we want to see like, could you see yourself at that table tying those blankets? Could you see yourself at Feed My Starving Children? Could you see yourself up on the stage at worship? Like, it's a way that to give people a glimpse into like, well, if you were to try out Prince of Peace, this is what it could look like.
Interesting. I love that. So for all the younger folks out here who are in the same bridge, in the same, you know, area where you're at, you know, sitting right between high school and college, or not in between it, but just kind of
in those two,
in that area. What would it take for you, like, to what is it for you to invite? Let me rephrase this. What would it take for you to feel comfortable inviting people to Prince of Peace, to find that community, if that makes sense? Because I find like sometimes it's difficult sometimes to invite somebody to your church home. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think with like church homes, like, and everyone, well, people have their church homes, and so when people they stick to their church home, right? It's their home. They like that place, and so sometimes it can be a little awkward to be like, hey, come try my church home for once.
Yeah.
And so that's where like I think a great thing is like, instead of phrasing it like that, like having those opportunities, having those activities of like, hey, my church is hosting a barbecue. you should come try it out. Or would you be interested in helping with my small group this week? Or we're going to go do an activity. So kind of just having those activities, having those opportunities to make it a little less of a, you are coming to my church and you are going to like it and you are going to enjoy it and you are going to worship and you are going to, so just kind of making it more of like a, come try it out and we'll see, just like
some outside. So not necessarily like, hey, come check out worship, because worship can bring up a lot of stuff for everybody. But like if there's activities, like if we're throwing a concert, or artist in residence concert, like we did with Russ a while back, now he's here, or Pop in the Park, things like that. Invite folks to things like that, whether there's snacks or Feed My Starving Children event, something like that.
Yeah, and like Pop Kids and Stuman, when I was going through those programs, they'd have little day trips like Valley Fair, or they'd do slip and slides or Nerf battles or all these different events where it's a lot easier to be like, especially as a young person, like 18, 17, 19, being like, hey, come, let's go have a Nerf battle, or let's go on a slip and slide, let's go to Valley Fair. Like it's a little bit, it's less intimidating for both parties to be like, come meet some of the people that I hang out with at church, and then maybe then we can you build those connections, and now you don't only just know me at my church, you know a couple of my friends, so it is a lot less intimidating of feeling that belonging, because now not only do you only know your one person, you got a couple other people that you can connect with and talk to when you come.
What are some, you talk about Nerf battles and things like that, and that's all pointed towards dinner. What are some things that Prince of Peace can do, like event-wise, that could speak to the bridge generation is what I'm going to call them right now?
Yeah. Again, music and food, right?
Music and food.
Pop in the Park is great because you got both. You got a good band and you got food. And just, I don't necessarily, it doesn't have to be anything big. Like, it could just be, we have a Prince of Peace open house. Come get coffee. We're having a latte bar or something. Come get some coffee and just sit down and talk for a little bit. Take a little break from life. Just come listen and hang out. Or if you work from home, come for the older young people. Come work from our coffee house or whatever and just get a coffee and hang out in our community room. I'm pointing this way because the community room is that way.
It is that way.
So just it doesn't have to be a big event or function. It could be just as little as we're opening our doors, stop by. And I know with those open door events, it could be a little hit or miss on how many people show up. But even if you get 2-3 people that show up, those 2-3 people still had a hopefully good experience, and those 2-3 people have a couple friends that maybe next time they invite, and then they invite, and you never know who might bring the next person.
One of the most worship, emotionally filled worship I've ever had, I was leading for Message Community, a band that we had a couple years back, and we were trying to reach the bridge generation. We were trying to reach a lot of folks who were trying to who didn't know where to go outside of student ministry and have now even left college to the point. So we were trying to reach that generation. We offered something called Message Community. And it didn't fully take. It's just like what we're talking, right? 5-6 people. But I remember we were in the sanctuary, a big room, and we had a full band that I was leading for these 5 people. And whatever it was, emotionally in the band that day or what we were bringing, I remember being there and we played and it was worshipful, to a point that I'm pretty sure that was the most worship filled moment that I felt in that space, but it was for 5 people. Mm-hmm. And I remember those 5 people at the end of that were just overwhelmed and overcome, and the connection that they had, and they always showed up. So I'm always at Prince of Peace, we talk about how like 5 people showed up to this event where we were hoping we might have 400. But I guarantee you, the musicians on that stage and the 5 people there all shared a very, very, very faith-filled moment. So I agree with you. Like, yeah, sometimes we open that door and not 200 people show up, 4 people show up. But what was that experience like for those 4 people?
And I know in that situation, it's hard to like, sometimes we can kind of get down on it of like, oh, we only got 5, but we got 5.
Yeah.
And especially when it's like a group of young people, which is a demographic that church in general are struggling to get. Yeah. We got 5 young people. That is great. Like, that is an amazing thing that should be celebrated. Like, and again, in a big congregation, it's kind of like number-wise, it's like 5, 400. Like, but it's still, we got 5 people to come and worship Jesus. Yeah. That rocks.
Right.
I was going somewhere. Totally blanked. It'll come back to me.
It'll come back to you. That's all right. So we got 5, like, and you're right. I mean, and who knows? So you get 5 that time, but you know, the next time, what if those 5 get like 10
friends?
More,
what if they get 2 friends each?
And then it kind of grows and balloons from there. You know, it's interesting to hear you talk, because a lot of times where we're at, you know, a lot of times, you know, we can get stuck in the numbers. We're counting, we're trying to figure out, was it success? Was it not a success? We often have to think about, you know, resources that we're utilizing for events. Was it worth the, you know, and you're right. If you reach 5 people, what happens when you reach 5 more and 5 more, which is, you know, you're at that point, you know, you're something's going right. So, yeah, that's interesting to hear.
Well, and because there's a scripture, I can't think exactly what it is, but it's when 2 people meet in me, I am there, and it's Jesus speaking.
Yeah.
And so the numbers are great, but also small groups, powerful things can happen in small groups, whether it's conversations, whether it's worship. And so I think opening the door to those small groups, allowing those small groups to have those powerful conversations, those intimate moments, can allow for some great faith-building lesson learning, life-changing moments to happen. Because it is sometimes hard for people to find time in their day, and maybe those not even in their day, in their week, because life's busy. And so maybe for those 5 people, they couldn't come on Sunday, but they could come on Tuesday or Thursday or whenever Message Community was, and they had those faith moments, those, as we call them at camp, God moments.
God moments, yes.
And those, like, if we have 5 God moments on a Thursday night, that is awesome. And in my book, I mean, as a 20-year-old, what I am, yeah, I'd say that's a win.
That's a win. I love it. Well, this has been awesome. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I'm thinking at some point we'll have to have you in here with PD, because I'd love to see you and PD sit down and chat. And maybe the next time, let's see, you have break, will be summer.
Yep, I'll be back for summer.
Back for summer.
I'd love to come back though.
And we would love to have you. So, anything else you would like to say to as we're wrapping up the podcast that comes to mind?
Read your Bibles.
Read your
Bibles.
Read your Bibles. There it is, the title of the episode. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Josh. And
thank you for having me.
All right, man. Have a good couple months of college. We'll see you soon.
We're still rolling. We're back.
We're back. So we're talking about, I had to bring it back because we're talking about something now that just kind of spurred an idea on. We took our headphones off and then we started chatting again and talking about, you know, something that surprised me. So we're coming back, the thing, and we're going to call this just like the follow-up, the Marvel movie secret credits ending.
The end credit scene.
The end credit scene. What I had mentioned is that I'm super surprised that it was the community that you're looking for. And I kind of drew a line to it earlier by saying, man, I would have thought that it's like phones are the things stuck in your hands. And, and like our predisposition to your generation is that you're stuck to this, but you're saying completely different.
Yeah. So one thing about working at a summer camp is we take our campers' phones away. Our staff have our phones for communication, work, safety reasons, but we take our campers' phones away. And when we take those phones out of the picture, we see these connections, these relationships, and these conversations just blossom. And then there's been multiple occasions throughout I've worked at camp for 3 summers, where kids are like, I have to go home, but I don't really want to like check my phone. And it's just so ironic because like the first night they're like, oh, I just wish I had my phone. But then they're leaving and they're like, wait, can I stay another week? Like, is that possible? Like, yeah. They just, the connections that they form, because again, they're used to always having their phone on them, and great tool, but it does have some addictive properties. And when you take it out of the picture, it really allows for these connections between young people, and it's just really great to see.
So, and that's the thing I wanted to land on, is that it's not always about what's on your phone. It's not always about that. It's that we are, no matter what generation, this still speaks true, we are looking for community and connection through community.
Yeah, we're still human. Like we still love people. We still care about people. We just might do it a little differently through a text or through a phone call. But we still love people. We still want those conversations.
You're calling people?
Oh, yeah. Well, FaceTime. Okay, FaceTime.
FaceTime. I was going to say, that sounds like my generation.
We'll FaceTime you.
FaceTime you. Well, thank you for the follow-up.
Yes.
I wanted to follow up with that real quick. Awesome talking to you, Josh. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe and share and like, smash that bell, all that good stuff. We'll catch you later.